I would like you for a moment to imagine yourself in a position, maybe now, maybe towards the end of your life, where you're suffering from a terminal illness that will kill you with a 100% guarantee within the next 6 months. This is the reality of many of the patients that partake in the End of Life Option Act here in California. In today's speech, I would like to discuss what the End of Life Option Act is, what qualifies a person to be a patient in this treatment plan, and lastly, I would like to discuss the moral and ethical implications surrounding the End of Life Option Act to consider whether or not this is a suicide, a murder, or something else in between. So first, let us dive in to what the End of Life Option Act is. The End of Life Option Act in California was developed in 2016 to give patients total autonomy over their treatment of care towards the end of their life or at any point where they are facing a terminal illness that will kill them within the next 6 months. The End of Life Option Act is surrounded by controversy, and it has a ton of moral and ethical implications that have been with it since its origin back in 2016. The End of Life Option Act empowers a patient to control the end of their care and decide the route that they want to take. They must qualify with 2 physicians, that they have the mental acuity and have an illness that will do these things to them and definitely come to a closing end, and that it is hard to try to put this into a nutshell, this entire topic. The End of Life Option Act serves as a monument in what could have been the autonomy presented in the end of life care, and it is used now as a model for some of what not to do and what to do. So now that I've given you kind of a glimpse, in a nutshell, End of Life Option Act, as well as kind of explaining the qualifications, or now I would like to explain the qualifications as to what qualifies somebody for this treatment plan. So like previously stated, an individual must, 1, have a 100% guarantee that their disease will kill them within the next 6 months. And this is a hard thing to prove, especially in the medical field, because there's so many doctors that would like to perform their own treatment plan and advocate for a patient to maybe take an alternative route when this one exists. So let's start off with some of the qualifications. A patient, 1, must be 18 years or older. 2, must have that terminal illness that's disclosed by 2 physicians, and then they also must submit a written document that this is the course of treatment that they would like to pursue. 3, they are to maintain a paper trail of legality for themselves, so that not only the patient is protected, but also the physicians that assist in the end-of-life medications. And 4, along with many other things, just to give you guys a brief insight into this, is that the patient must have the mental acuity in order to follow through with this procedure. So with all those qualifications, if a person's to meet all those boxes, here are a couple things that they're to expect. Like I previously stated, they're going to be in constant contact with a physician, not only to adhere to the compliance with the medications, they're also going to be expected to maintain a paper trail of the care on both sides. The biggest thing with a procedure like this is that you want to ensure that there's no foul play. You don't want a physician to influence the patient, and you don't want the patient to, under some special circumstances, try to convince a physician that they have terminal illness that maybe 1 might be invisible, or 2 might be so nuanced that a physician is just trying to do this almost as a mercy. And we'll talk a little bit about that more later, but the moral and ethical implications about this mercy role that is instilled in some of these physicians. So patients are to expect that. I think one of the main points too here with the End of Life Option Act is that the patient at any point can abstain from taking the medications that they've been prescribed, and they no longer have to partake. This is a 0 commitment treatment plan. However, its results being permanent if you do follow through. So now that I've given you a brief glimpse of what qualifies a person for this medication, I would now like to move into those moral and ethical implications that I just dabbled on not too long ago. So the biggest question with this is this an assisted suicide? Is this a murder? Or is it something else in between? Legally, this is not a murder and this is not a suicide. This whole treatment plan lies outside of the law being protected by the End of Life Option Act. No physician or patient can be held legally liable for the results of the procedure, and this stirred up a lot of controversy in the medical field. If you're familiar with the Hippocratic Oath, it states that doctors are to perform to the best of their ability to maintain a life and to not take any extreme measures that will put a person's life in jeopardy. This whole act is based in that. You are taking a patient's life in the sense that you are assisting them in being a guiding hand to lead them into the afterlife, if that's what you believe, or leading just them to the end of this life here on earth. There's two sides to that coin. One side states that it goes in complete violation of the Hippocratic Oath and your responsibility as a physician. And the other side states that this is the ultimate encapsulation of the Hippocratic Oath because you are doing everything you can for a patient and granting them the exact treatment that they are expecting. So where does that fall? Typically it's going to sit in limbo, especially in that morality sense. Looking from the outside in, it almost looks like an assisted suicide to the average person. But to those who partake and are in the patient testimonies that state it is knowing that their relative was going to pass away from a terminal illness, going this route was the mercy and the easiest way for the patient to move on. However, you have the other side, some physicians being traumatized by their experiences by putting an end to many of these lives and struggling with their identity as doctors. One side seems a little bit more egocentric than the other. However, it is totally up to the audience to make their perceptions on this issue. So with that, I would like to, in this speech, we first talked about what the End of Life Option Act is. Secondly, we talked about what qualifies a patient for this treatment plan. And lastly, we talked about the moral and ethical implications surrounding this matter. I hope you disembark from this speech today with a sense of understanding and familiarity with what the End of Life Option Act is. I want to empower you to do more research on this so you can create a stance of your own. And I want you to walk out trying to understand the perspective of those who are struggling with these terminal illnesses towards the end of their life, especially with that guarantee, hearing it from two physicians that they are going to pass away in 6 months or less. So I hope you have a great evening. Thank you for listening.